so they can sing along. It's available. You just have to know which buttons to push.
I sent it to you and okay. But you have to forward it. I don't have that.
So these words, while we're waiting for your mother, these words are, there's just 4 lines, and they're names of Krishna in Brindavan. And it's said about the names of Krishna that are like these, they're primary names. That is to say, they're not just describing his position as God, but they're describing his personal relationships with his devotees. Yasoda Nandana, Girivardhari, the holder of the Govardhan hill, Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari, he enjoys pastimes in the kunjas or the groves of Vrindavan with his friends. Like that. So it takes us to Vrindavan before we even begin, just through his names. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Jasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jamuna Tira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamana Tira Vanachadi Jamuna Tiravanachaji Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatara Satasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavarinda Ki Gaur Premanandi. Well, it's 3 minutes before starting time. For those of us that are, for the family that are hosting us, we're going to be having some people online from the Gulf states, Bahrain, from Singapore, from this place and that place and some other places. So I'll be addressing you primarily, but at the end there comes some discussion, online discussion. So you get first priority because you're hosts. I think I'll do a little background first because I think the Bahrain devotees won't need so much of an introduction to this topic. The topic is Krishna's childhood pastimes in Brindavan. Now I'm going to be particularly paying attention to you two girls to make sure that we're, connecting with the message here. You're certainly familiar with Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, speaker of Bhagavad Gita. And when Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, do you know how old he was? 125 years. Because when Krishna was present, it was a previous age or yuga, and people lived much longer in the previous yuga, and before that, longer than that, and so forth. But his form was youthful. We were just reading some other commentary. His form looked like a 12-year-old. In fact, so many years later, from what we're going to be reading here, what we're reading here, he's still, he's not yet 5 years old. So he's really small. But after some time, he was in Brindavan. Then he went to Mathura, right? Mathura is the capital. And there he took care of Kamsa. And he freed his mother and father from prison of Kamsa. So they were reunited. So he's 12, he hasn't even gone to school yet. So they send him to school, all those long pastimes. Sandipani Muni, he went to his school, graduated really quickly. It's wonderful pastimes with that. Then he came back, he stayed in Mathura for some time, and eventually he went to Dwarka, so Brindavan, then Mathura, then Dwarka. And when he was in Dwarka, he got married. But he had a few wives. You know how many wives? a big number of wives. You won't be able to guess it. 16,108. But he expanded himself into 16,108 forms, so that simultaneously each wife wasn't lonesome. He was with them all the time, except for the part of the day that he went to the assembly house, and then the 16,108 Krishnas exited the palaces and became one Krishna. He went into the assembly house, came out and expanded himself again into 16,108 Krishnas, and went back to each palace. He has mystic powers. He's not like one of us. And his first queen was Rukmini. You've heard her name before? Rukmini. And their first son, they had 10 sons, but the first son's name was Pradyumna. Pradyumna. And when Pradyumna one time entered Krishna's inner chamber, the ladies, because Pradyumna, by bodily features, looked so much like Krishna, even his age looked like Krishna, although he was his son, he was a 12-year-old. They thought it was Krishna, so they became shy and hid themselves. Although he was, elderly by years on earth. So Krishna's the picture is, Krishna has powers that don't match what we're having experience of. And it's a fundamental understanding about the nature of that which is the source of everything. That is, all potencies are within that which is the source of everything. It's kind of logical. Whatever it is that's the source of everything, all potencies rest there. So within Krishna, all potencies are there. So he can do things that we're not able to do because he has all potencies within him. So in his childhood pastimes, we're going to hear it specifically, he performed activities as if he's one of us for two reasons. For his pleasure, because he enjoys, and within Krishna is everything. So he has desires to enjoy that are all types of desires to enjoy. So he enjoys with his devotees. So there's cowherd men, there's cowherd women, there's his friends, there's all varieties of relationships amongst them. And he is enjoying in those ways, and they're enjoying with him in those ways. Like every year in our calendar, we observe Krishna's birthday. Right? Krishna Janmashtami, you're familiar? Okay, good. And, he's God. He doesn't take birth, but he has a pastime where he takes birth. It's a pastime. And the day after his birth, there's a big festival, a birth festival. Nandotsava, it's called. Nanda Maharaj, his father, have a big utsav, big festival, Nandotsav. And then when he's still a little baby, there's a demoness. Her name is Putana. You've heard of Putana? Oh, okay. There was a different audience yesterday. There was two boys. They hadn't heard any of these things. So she disguised herself like a nice lady, but her specialty was killing children and eating them. She wasn't a nice lady. So she came to disguise as a nurse to feed the little baby Krishna, little baby. And her intention was to kill him. So Krishna took care of that. She accepted her mood as being a mother, although it was just a pretense, and liberated her. She achieved liberation. Not a liberation, she achieved a position as, in the spiritual world, an eternal assistant to Mother Jasoda. Because that little bit of service, she came like a nurse, like a mother. So Krishna accepted that, and that was her destination after this life. And then the next incident was Krishna was just still a few weeks old, and there was another attempt to kill him by a cart demon named Shakatasura. Krishna took care of him. That's another story. And then Nanda went to pay his taxes because his service was, he was the king of all the persons who were taking care of cows in agriculture. They took some of their production to the king to pay taxes in Mathura, that's the capital. So on his way back, he met with a very celebrated astrologer from the royal family. His name was Gargamuni. They did it, he had a name-giving ceremony. So Krishna's name was given as Krishna, Balaram as Balaram, and so forth. And spoke some words to describe Krishna's position. He didn't say he's God, but he didn't say he's not either. He said, your son will be invested with powers like Narayana. And with those powers, he'll give protection to all the residents of your village, Vraja. And so you should take good care of him, bringing him up, and so forth and so on. He spoke some words, name-giving ceremony, Namakarnana. Then Nanda went back to Vraja, and they had a festival, his name-giving ceremony festival, because it was a private affair. They didn't want Kamsa to know, because he would have done something mean, because he's a very mean person. So it just was incognito, name-giving ceremony, and then back. So now they're in Brindavan, and Krishna's a little baby, less than 45 days old, and he starts doing baby things. So this is the chapter that we're reading. So he learns to crawl, and that's very interesting. When he and Balaram learn to crawl, they go here and there. They don't go in point A to point B, they go zigzag. It's playful. But he's the personality of Godhead, but what he's doing, he's giving pleasure to all those who see him crawling here, crawling there, like, a little baby. And people that are even, it's not even their child, they just smile, and common thing. But this is pure devotees in the personality of Godhead, so he's giving them pleasure by a little childhood pastime, but although he's the personality of Godhead. Then he learns to talk, that's cute. And, they sing songs and they clap, and he smiles, they're singing songs. It's just like the little boy, little baby. And very quickly, even when he's still a baby, he learns to walk, which doesn't happen. But, he's precocious, he's personality of Godhead. So he learns to walk, and then when they start to learn to walk, the elder men, they see him walking here and walking there, and his beauty, his charm, his sweet smile, beautiful features, their hearts melt just to see him moving here and there. And then comes his mischievous pastimes. Little boys are sometimes like that. Girls, of course, never do what he did. But, he stole butter. And he did it like this. There are many verses where it describes how he did what he did. Here's some examples. He would, if there was somebody in the house, he wanted to go and steal in the house. So if someone in the house, he let the calves out. So the calves would go to the cows to take the milk from the cows. And then there'd be an alarm, so the housewives would have to leave their duties and chores inside and go take care of the calves to bring them back until it's time for milking. And while they were gone, then he would steal yogurt and butter from their house. And if there was no yogurt and butter in the house, then he'd go to the back room where the children were and he'd pinch them. They would cry, and he'd run. And sometimes he would do like this, and the men would come and they would say, "You're a thief, stop stealing." And Krishna would just smile and keep eating the butter and yogurt. And on and on and on. So there's so many, So they put the butter in the storerooms, and he would find a way to get into the storerooms and break the butter pots with a stick with a point on the end and feed the monkeys, and the whole, very celebrated pastime, Makanchor. So then the ladies would come to lodge a complaint with Mother Yasoda. But it was just their prema. They weren't really complaining, lock your kid up. He's a monster. It was with affection. And Mother Yasoda would hear, and they had some back and forth, and she would smile. She never reprimanded him. Why do you do these things? And smile and hold him, and because he was afraid she would chastise him. And he was looking fearful. Then our acharyas explain, this is important with the next section. He actually wanted to have that feeling of being chastised by Mother Yasoda. But she didn't, because of her affection. So he did something more bad, worse. And that's what we're discussing now. He ate dirt. You know that pastime? Okay, good. So there's some statements that say he didn't eat dirt, and some statements says he did eat dirt, but the situation was Mother Yasoda knew how mischievous Krishna was, so he asked the other boys, "You look out for him," especially the older brother Balaram. Make sure he doesn't do something that hurts himself. And so when Krishna ate dirt, or made like he ate dirt and didn't eat dirt, which either way, then they complained to Mother Yasoda, "He's eating dirt." And that's where we are. Krishna's going to show the universe within his abdomen. Text 34. We're going to read 2 verses. Chapter 8 of Canto 10, verse 34. Dear Krishna, why are you so restless that you have eaten dirt in a solitary place? This complaint has been lodged against you by all your playmates, including your elder brother, Balaram. How is this? And the purport, this is Prabhupada's writing. Mother Yashoda was agitated by Krishna's restless misbehavior. Her house was full of sweetmeats. Why then should the restless boy eat dirt in a solitary place? Krishna replied, "My dear mother, they have plotted against me and lodged a complaint so that you will punish me. My elder brother Balaram has joined them. Actually, I have not done this. Take my words as true. Do not be angry and chastise me." So now I'm going to read commentary from other acharyas. This is Prabhupada's writing, drawn from our previous acharyas. And the names may not mean anything to you, but that's okay. They're perfected souls. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is one. His commentary reads, "Oh, unsteady body, unsteady mind, did you eat dirt? Did you not get sweets in my house? Not in my presence, but stealthily you have done it. Your friends are saying this. So it can't be false. You cannot say that they are saying that as enemies because they want me to beat you, because even Baladeva is saying this. He's standing right there saying this. So there is no doubt about it." And the next commentator is Jiva Goswami, who writes, "Her scolding is described. Oh, young boy with uncontrolled senses. You could not eat dirt in the presence of Balaram. Therefore, you have eaten it when they were not present. This is certain. They are your intimate friends, and therefore they have not lied. They are present now as witnesses, and thus you cannot deny it. Krishna replies, but they are saying this just as a joke. No, your elder brother also says this. There is no doubt when he also says this, since Vasudeva and Nanda were relatives, so Vasudeva and Nanda were relatives, and Rohini and Yashoda were great friends. Yashoda addresses Balaram as the elder brother of Krishna, taking him as her son. It is also stated out of affection for him. So, Vasudeva had a number of wives. He was in the royal family, and that was allowed. And so one of those wives was Krishna's mother, Devaki. And another of his wives was Rohini. So Rohini was the mother of Balaram, and Devaki was the mother of Krishna. But Nanda became the foster father of Krishna, that is, he brought up Krishna during his first 11, 12 years in Brindavan. And so they had natural affection. Vasudeva and Nanda had affection. The two mothers, Rohini and Yashoda, had great affection, were dear friends. They lived together practically. So Yashoda has a feeling towards Balaram like her own son, naturally so. So she addresses him in that manner, just out of affection. Krishna's elder brother, Balaram. And one more commentary, translating the same verse we just read, text 34. Dear Krishna, why are you so restless that you have eaten dirt in a solitary place? This complaint has been lodged against you by all your playmates, including your elder brother Balaram. How is this? And then this is Jiva Goswami makes a comment. In Dwaraka, there's a certain mood, an emotion of love called Kanta Bhava, an emotion of love. And there in Dwaraka, that mood of love is mixed with a mood of serving Krishna. Dasya, service. And in Braja, the elders, they have this same emotion of love. And it's parental affection, but with a mood of friendship towards Krishna. They're mothers, so they have a motherly affection towards Krishna like their son, but they also have like this close affection like a friend. Sakya. Like Arjuna, this is right in his commentary. Arjuna's relationship with Krishna was as his friend, his devotee, and his friend. Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. Krishna says to Arjuna, you're my devotee, bhakta, and you're my sakha, you're my dear friend. So you'll be able to understand all of what I'm teaching you in Bhagavad Gita. So it goes on. Now we're going to the next verse. We're a little bit longer commentary. Text 35, translation reads, Lord Sri Krishna replied, my dear mother, I have never eaten dirt. All my friends are complaining against me are liars. If you think they are being truthful, you can directly look into my mouth and examine it. And Prabhupada's purport. Krishna presented himself as an innocent child to increase the transcendental ecstasy of maternal affection. as described in the Shastra. There's a Sanskrit phrase, Tadana Bayan Mityoktir Vatsalya Rasa Proshika, which means sometimes a small child speaks lies. For example, he may have stolen something or eaten something and yet deny that he has done so. We ordinarily see this in the material world, but in relation to Krishna, it is different. Semicolon. Such activities are meant to endow the devotee with transcendental ecstasy. The Supreme Personality of Godhead was playing as a liar and accusing all the other devotees of being liars. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a verse from chapter 12. It's describing the cowherd boys' activities in Brindavan, and they're having so much fun. And Shukadev Goswami becomes ecstatic and says, Krita Punya Punja, that is, a devotee may attain such an ecstatic position, cowherd boyfriends of Krishna, after many, many births of devotional service. Persons who have amassed the results of vast amount of pious activities can attain the stage of associating with Krishna and playing with him like ordinary playmates. One should not consider these transactions of transcendental service to be untruthful accusations. One should never accuse such devotees of being ordinary boys speaking lies, for they attained this stage of association with Krishna by great austerities. And Prabhupada refers to a verse from Canto 6, Tapasa Brahmacharjena Shamena Cha Damena Cha. The method of acquiring knowledge, that's what that verse is describing. So here's further commentary. Krishna said, I did not eat dirt. To tell a lie for fear of being beaten is natural for a child and is a nourisher of Vatsalya Bhava, or parental affection. Vatsalya means parental. Vatsalya Bhava, parental affection. Vatsalya and other rasas spring from prema. You know the meaning, right? Prema, love, prema. So, this parental affection and other rasas, exchanges of love with Krishna, they spring from prema, the perfection of love. And prema has its source in the devotee. It arises in the devotee because of the affection of the Lord. A little bit cause and effect. Bhakta Vatsala. So let's do that again. Let's do reverse order. Bhakta Vatsala means, here's the next sentence. This quality, Bhakta Vatsala, is greater than any other spiritual quality of the Lord, such as truthfulness, purity, or mercy. So Bhakta Vatsala means he's very affectionate to his devotee, Bhakta Vatsala. So because of his affection to his devotee, the devotee then feels or comes to the stage where prema is awakened. And when that stage of prema is awakened, then they come to know what their natural relationship of love is. Let's do it again. It's important. Everything within Krishna is everything. And of most outstanding amongst the qualities of Krishna is affection for his devotees. His affection for his devotees goes beyond everything else that's within him. Most outstanding quality. So when there's someone that has cultivated carefully the position of devotion to him, he endows them with prema. And when prema arises, then their particular relationship with Krishna becomes experienced and unfolded and matured. So that's the same thing applies to each one of us. We're spirit souls, regardless. I mean, the tulips out there in the front yard or the garden, they're spirit souls in a tulip body. And there's some birds flying around, and those birds flying around, they're spirit soul in a bird body. So the body is not the self, it's the spirit soul. And inherent within the spirit soul is an eternal relationship with the source of all souls. It's already there. Not like, but we've forgotten it because we're absorbed in the temporary, being a tulip or being a bird or being a human or being a this or that, depending, and it changes as bodies change. But our real identity is none of those things. Our real identity is the spirit soul within that has a relationship with Krishna. So we're trying slowly to cultivate a mood of service to Krishna. That's our relationship. Our constitutional relationship is being his servant. So when we practice and practice and it becomes very strong and fixed and pure, there's a reciprocation from Krishna's side. He bestows prema. We can't go get it at a Kmart or Target or anything. It has to come from Krishna directly. When he bestows prema, then the next thing that happens is we have whatever that eternal relationship with Krishna is, we come to realize what it is. It's sequential. I'll say the same thing in a different way, but it's the same thing. There's a wonderful book entitled Sri Brahma Samhita. It's 61 verses. It's a pretty skinny book, but it's describing in the beginning part is how Brahma became realized. And he became realized by, as you probably know, he underwent tapa, or austerity. And his particular tapa, or austerity, for a long time, was he had received mantra. And he was chanting his mantra, that was his tapa. I mean, the situation at the time was there was nothing. He was alone. Not only alone, there was no light, there's no sun, there's no nothing, no electricity, no cell phone with a little flashlight built in. It was darkness in all directions. And a lotus flower. And he could hear the splashing of the Garbhadak ocean beneath. So for a long, long time he underwent tapa, and then he realized his identity as an eternal servant of Krishna, just through that. Then he received a second mantra that came from Krishna's flute, and it entered his ear, and then he began meditating on that second mantra. And then with the second mantra, he started to begin to realize his eternal identity in his spiritual form as a maidservant of Krishna. It hadn't matured yet, it was just like a little bud starting to open up. It wasn't a full flower yet. But that's what's described in Brahma Samhita. It's the same thing as what's here. And so it's resting on Krishna's quality of being Bhaktavatsala and the fact that we have an eternal relationship with him that we've forgotten. When Prabhupada came to the West, his first public speech, keeping it really short, it's a nice story, was to say, I've not come to teach you something new. Imagine. He was in a park in New York City with, the 1960 people hanging around, the counterculture, whatever you want to call them, people, hippies, and all those people. And they were chanting for 3 hours, a big crowd, and he stood up, and his first words were, I've not come to teach you something new. I've come to teach you that which you have forgotten. And I came to find out that he said the same thing when he went back to India. Because he took maybe 30 of the strongest youthful American and European disciples with him, and they traveled all over India having massive Sankirtan throughout the streets. And he said the same thing to the Indian people. I've simply come to remind you of what you've forgotten. Because the face of India during that time, and today also, has turned their face away from the roots, unfortunately. So this is just to remind you of that this wonderful heritage that you have that you've forgotten. Now, earlier today, I sent to Vibhu Chaitanya, you can share it with these two girls. There's a little 2-page description of an Indian girl that grew up in America in a devotee family. And she describes what it's like growing up. She uses the language in a brown body in America that's all white. You know, the culture is white, the values are white, and the movies are white, and, you know, that's okay, but, you know, so, and she always felt judged and challenged and stuff. Anyway, and then finding herself in the midst of all of that, because she has her spiritual values, but she was kind of, would hide it, because she would feel judged by people that didn't understand it and so forth. But now she's a college graduate, and she's reflecting back on those high school and college days, going, it was really tough. Oh. And she's in the process of rediscovering. I mean, it's interesting. You read the article, like the why behind the things that we do in our culture. And by understanding the why behind the things that we do within our culture, it makes it easier to feel contented with my culture. Anyway, you can imagine this is kind of a role reversal. Growing up in America and people not being used to anything, you know, dhoti and tilak and shaved head and, you know, etc. And the teachings and the values and the behaviors and the norms and the diet and the everything, the culture. So the Krishna's pastime here is to awaken and revive within Mother Jasoda and all the other residents of Brindavan their feelings of love for Krishna, and he's doing what he's doing for that reason, including the mischief and all the whole things. And it springs from his quality of Bhaktavatsala. And so in the course of his, the point is, in the course of his being Bhaktavatsala, like his stealing of butter, he doesn't have any need for butter. Mother Jasoda would say, why are you talking? You know how many cows Nanda Maharaj has? He has 9 lakhs of cows. There's no shortage of, why would he go somewhere and steal butter? I don't believe you. And, you know, if he's stealing, then why don't you just give it to him? They said, well, when we give it to him, he doesn't take it because he just likes to steal. And he devises so many clever ways to steal. They'll tell you some of the clever ways. And when you try to stop him this way and that way, he just smiles. And he goes on stealing. Or he'll tell the man of the house, I'm not the thief, you're the thief. So clever. But he's doing these things to stimulate their love, because That's what's in their heart, is just their love for Krishna. Not because of any other reason, just their love for Krishna and his charming personality, supreme personality. So he does these things. This is his Bhakta Vatsala, is the origin. And so if we see some discrepancy, like stealing is something bad, we're not supposed to steal. But when Krishna steals, it's nice. It's a loving exchange, and so forth. Okay, so carrying on. Another commentator writes, I did not eat dirt. Though this was a lie, there is no fault, since it is part of his pastimes as a small child. Rather, this becomes a good quality, since by describing it, Shukadeva derives bliss, and by hearing it, the devotees derive bliss. Oh, mother, he tries to stimulate her affection because he fears getting beaten. Balaram should not be distinguished from the others. All the boys are liars. He said, look in my mouth, because he thought there were no traces in his mouth. He had swallowed all the dirt. So some versions say he swallowed, some says he didn't. Sanatan Goswami writes, I did not eat dirt. Since he only pretended to eat dirt, he spoke the truth. The others lied. Or he spoke a lie in fear, and this was not a fault. Or he spoke a lie to give pleasure to his special devotees. He calls to his mother out of fear of being beaten to increase her affection for him. All are liars, including the elder gopis who spoke lies about me stealing butter. From this you can infer that the gopis were also lying. Look into my mouth. Since he had pretended to eat dirt, they were lying. Same series. By showing something astonishing, he would distract attention. That's what he's going to show inside his mouth from his act of stealing. It's all pastime. So now we're going to go into some more technical topics. This is Jiva Goswami describing the loving exchange of Krishna in Braja. The activities of Krishna are of two types. Those displaying opulence, or Aishvarya, and those displaying sweetness, or Madhurya. Because the people of Braja are filled with prema, the actions displayed in Madhurya, or sweetness, are causes of greater pleasure. Thus it is said, with astonishment and bliss. Now this is from a later chapter. Translation of Shukadeva speaking. In this way, the Supreme Lord, whose soft lotus feet are personally attended by the goddess of fortune when he takes other forms, whose sweetness cannot be understood by anyone, acted like the son of a cowherd to show mercy to his parents. Yet, even while enjoying, like a village boy in the company of other village residents, he often exhibited activities only the Lord could perform. So there's the sweetness and there's the opulence. Madhurya and Aishvarya. Commentary. Though his soft feet are tended by Lakshmi, in his manifestation as Narayana, situated in the sweetness of his pastimes amongst the amazing people of Braja, he acted as a common cowherd boy by his actions and enjoyed personally according to his wish, not in the manner that Lakshmi tended his feet. In other words, it would be kind of inappropriate if Narayan got off the throne and started crawling around and doing stealing and other things. He's enjoying freely, no constraints. The enjoyment is described. It was like the village chief's boy playing with common boys. He enjoys when the pastimes are predominated with sweetness, not Aishwarya or opulence. He is absorbed in those pastimes, for even when alone, he displays such conditions. Another quote from a verse in this 10th canto, chapter 9. Being intensely angry and biting his reddish lips with his teeth, Krishna, with futile tears in his eyes, broke the container of yogurt with a piece of stone. This is the Damodar Leela. Then he entered a room and began to eat the freshly churned butter in a solitary place. Krishna regretted that the boys were out of his hands and thought it was arranged by fate. Krishna, giver of fearlessness to all beings, saw that the cowherd boys, this is the Aghasura story. Aghasura? You know that one too? The big serpent, Aghasura? Okay, you guys are good. Huh? Okay, so this is that story. When the cowherd boys entered the mouth of Aghasura, Krishna became astonished. Now he's the knower of all things, but he's enjoying that experience. So here it is. Krishna, the giver of fearlessness to all beings, saw that all the cowherd boys who did not know anyone but him as their shelter had now escaped from his hand and were helpless. They were now suffering like straws to be burned by the fire of the abdomen of Aghasura, who was death personified. Bewildered by his own affection, he was astonished by what had been arranged by his own appointed Leela Shakti. Then he recovered. Thus the sages described with astonishment his skill in intelligence and actions in those pastimes when acting according to worldly conduct. For example, when fighting with Jarasandha. Jarasandha? Your mom knows. You two girls know? Jarasandha was, he tried so many times to kill Krishna with big armies, and he was defeated so many times, 20-something times. He was like very inimical toward Krishna, very powerful king. And then a fight with Jarasandha was arranged directly. Speaking about Krishna, for him who orchestrates the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the three worlds, and who possesses unlimited spiritual qualities, it is hardly amazing that he subdues insignificant opponents like Jarasandha, because he is playing a human role in his pastimes. The emphasis is the human-like nature of his pastimes, although he's the supreme. He's enjoying it. What is amazing in his pastimes is arranged by his Leela Shakti, since he is complete in all powers, while being attached only to the rasa in his pastimes. Thus it is said in this verse, Isha Cheshtita, he performs pastimes which are skillfully arranged, though this is sometimes easy and sometimes difficult to arrange according to the pastime. For example, when Yashoda challenged Krishna, if you have not eaten dirt, then open your mouth wide. Krishna, endowed with the highest powers and with the highest sweetness, exhibiting pastimes like a human child, not completely giving up his powers, opened his mouth. She then saw the universe. This was arranged by his Leela Shakti. But previously he spoke to make the pastime enjoyable. My dear mother, I have not eaten dirt. All my friends are liars. If you think they are truthful, you can directly look into my mouth. Krishna's Leela Shakti nourished the astonishment and worry of Mother Yasoda. Astonishment. And then, who is this? What's going on? Which increased Mother Yasoda's parental affection. Though Krishna seemed to tell a lie out of fear, his words, "I did not eat earth," became true. Again, in the Damodar pastime, Krishna did not want to be tied up. When rope was added, he manifested 2 fingers more in size. That's a previous chapter. But when his mother became tired, he agreed to be tied up, and his size became normal. Thus, by the power of Krishna's merciful glance, his friends were delivered from poison at the Kaliya lake. Right? You know that pastime? The Kaliya serpent. And Krishna danced on the hoods of the Kaliya serpent. But before he danced on the hoods, the cowherd boys went to take water from the lake. Because it was poisonous, they fell over as if dead. But then Krishna just glanced on them and they came back to life again. Because of his unlimited powers. Absorbed in mercy by his mere desire to devour the fire. After that pastime, there was a forest fire. And the forest fire was extinguished just by his desire. So there are these terms that are describing, the main point here is the seeming human-like nature of his pastimes, while at the same time exhibiting opulences that show his divinity. And the love of the residents of Brindavan is so strong, they overlook his divinity. And they just see the sweetness. His actions cannot be understood by others. And there's more very similar messages, again on the same topic. So here's when Krishna asked her to look inside his mouth, here's what she saw. When Krishna opened his mouth wide by the order of Mother Yashoda, she saw within his mouth all moving and non-moving entities, outer space, and all directions, along with mountains, islands, oceans, the surface of the earth, the blowing wind, fire, the moon, and stars. She saw the planetary systems, water, light, air, sky, and creation by transformation of ahankar. She also saw the senses, the mind, sense perception, and the 3 qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance. She saw the time allotted for the living entities. She saw natural instinct and the reactions of karma. She saw desires in different varieties of bodies, moving and non-moving, seeing all these aspects of the cosmic manifestation, along with herself and Brindavan Dham. She became doubtful and fearful of her son's nature. And it goes on. With other pastimes, it's just expressing once again, as we heard before, different situations would be arranged by Krishna's pastimes where the sweetness of the exchange was amplified by his showing opulences that made it impossible. I mean, here's an impossibility. She got some rope to try to bind Krishna. It was 2 inches too short. So she got more rope and tied the ropes together and tried to bind Krishna. It was still 2 inches too short. She got more rope, tied it together, and tried to put it around Krishna's waist, and it was still 2 inches too short. So her friends were saying, don't you understand, it's just like not meant to be. Just this morning with a little string, you tied a bell around his waist and it went around his waist, and now you have all this rope and it's not going around his waist. So just accept it's not meant to happen. And she said, well, the funny thing is, why is it always 2 inches too short? I can't understand it. And I can't say no because I'm his mother, and if I allow him to steal, then what's going to happen when he grows up? I have to check him. I have to bind him. So her parental affection superseded, this mystery of why is 2 inches too short. Always, same. Because her mother Yashoda's hard labor, her whole body became covered with perspiration, and the flowers and comb were falling from her hair. When child Krishna saw his mother thus fatigued, he became merciful to her and agreed to be bound. In the same way, with his merciful glance, Lord Krishna revived his cowherd friends, and after they had fainted, by drinking the poisoned water of Kaliya Lake, in the same way he swallowed the forest fire and performed many other extraordinary activities. So he's acting as if human, at the same time he's not human. He's the all-powerful Supreme. And then there's quotes of several verses from different chapters saying human-like form. But this is his original form, from which everything else comes. You could say it negatively. There's nothing that exists that doesn't have its origin in Krishna. Or positively, whatever exists is found within Krishna. Krishna is within everything, and everything is within Krishna. That's a contradiction, by the way. It's like saying, we're in the room and the room is within us. That's not possible. But we're limited, and Krishna's not. So he can simultaneously be within everything, and everything is within him. So we were showing Mother Yashoda everything is within him. At the same time, the whole universe was outside, simultaneously. Everything was within him, and everything is not within him. And she was given the eyes to see all this. So in the evening, we're going to go over more details of what she saw and compare that to some other sections of the Bhagavatam that show this feature of the universe in other Canto 3 and Canto 2, Virat Rup, universal form. This is probably not what you expected to hear, but we're just going along in sequence with our topics. Now, I was asked to say something to the devotees in Bahrain. We started a little bit early, so I didn't say Haribol to all of you, but now assume that some of you are with us, and we've been doing this sequence in the evening, afternoon and evening, covering Canto 10, Chapter 8, and let's see where we go from here. And in the morning, we're discussing Govardhan Leela, and then what comes after the Govardhan Leela. That's Krishna rescuing his father from the place of Varuna, and then the subsequent things that happen. So the pastimes of Krishna are accessible through sound. We don't have the qualifications to enter the place of Krishna's pastimes other than through sound, but through sound we can go there. So let's see if there's some discussion in the room, if anybody wants to bring something up. Yes, behind you.
Krishna Maharaj.
A little different, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very different. So my question is, Maharaj, as we try to learn a little bit of spirituality, right? One side is this technical side of, you have karma and Brahma and the, the theoretical aspects, I would call it.
Yeah.
And then we have this prema, valsalya, rasas, and the pastimes stories. My question is, how do we really connect these two and tie it together? It's a question I have.
Okay. Well, I've got a computer in my lap. And if something goes wrong with this computer, I don't have a clue how to make it work. But there are people that know how to make it work. And there's one person that's like, no matter where I am in the world, if I let him know I got a problem, and within, a few minutes, it's fixed. Because he understands computers. And I'm just like completely dependent upon this devotee that knows, he doesn't know everything about everything, but what he doesn't know, he can sort it out quickly. So, like that, the 2 points that you brought up, it can be a mystery, like a computer is a mystery for me. There's computer science that I don't know, but there's a science to computers. So there's also a spiritual science, and how this fits together with that takes, some careful study. Like, generally computer science requires an education in computer science. There's some teachers that teach computer science, and you learn this and that and the other thing, and put these things together with those things, etc. And once you have the fundamentals down, you can learn something newer more easily than if you didn't. So, same with spiritual science. Let's just keep it, on the physical side, there's Sankhya. Sankhya means the analysis of matter and spirit. But the analysis of matter and spirit is rooted in spirit. And to understand it comprehensively, you have to have some understanding of spirit, or it helps you get a better understanding of spirit by understanding Sankhya, because it's rooted in spirit. And then it's the universal form, because that's what Mother Jasoda is seeing, the form of the universe. But the form of the universe is rooted in spirit. If you don't see the connection between one and the other, then you're kind of toggling back and forth between material consciousness and spiritual consciousness. But spiritual consciousness doesn't require trashing the universe, or the duties of life within the universe, or how does this fit together with that which is Sankhya? What's the push and pull of the laws of material nature? You don't have to be an atheist to go there. There's a connection. So to understand the connection takes some careful study of spiritual science, and it's my background, unlike yours, my background was in the field of science, biochemistry, heading for a medical degree. So my brain is wired for that. The cause and effect of things, and how this creates that, and that creates another thing, and so forth. So for me, it's not, I don't know anything about computers, but I know something about the cause and effect of things in this world, and just have a natural aptitude for that. So for me, it's not difficult. It takes a while more than a while. It takes a while to get the Sankhya picture sorted out. But the purpose of that, as described in the Bhagavatam, is to come to the stage of knowing that we belong to the category of spirit, engage in meditation on spirit, and engage in activities on the spiritual plane. Even using, the senses and the objects of the senses. in service to the Supreme. There is a connection. It is not just a sentimental connection. It's a factual, philosophically grounded connection. In the beginning, one may not understand it so well, just like your question. But there is a connection, and by engaging in the activities then of bhakti, of making the connection between matter and spirit through devotion, then the clouds start to clear, and one can start to understand things that one couldn't understand before. It's likened, Srila Prabhupada likened it to the sun rising in the morning. We experience it every day. There's darkness at night. And it's not like the sun suddenly is, overhead. It's a gradual sunrise, and the darkness is dispelled as the sun rises, and then it pops over the horizon, and you can see the sun directly, and so forth. Spiritual awakening happens progressively like that. So how this fits together with that becomes clear over time. And largely, it's just an interaction of Krishna and his energies. The teaching of Vyasa is called, by some scholars, Shakti Parinama Vada. Vada means doctrine of, the Vada of, the doctrine of transformation of energies. So he has different energies. And so some energies are for the material creation, but they're his energies. Some energies are for his spiritual activities. Those are the spiritual energies. So, but he's the energetic source of all those energies. And some energies move this way and this happens. Some energies move that way and that happens. All resting upon the same source of all things, all energies. It's a principle. And as you start to understand the principle and the application of the principle, then the details aren't so puzzling. It takes a while. Like I'm sure it takes a while to understand computer programming and all kinds of other things that a lot of people know backwards and forwards.
Guru Maharaj, my question is, to get a human birth, my understanding is that one would have done good deeds in the previous birth. But when we look at people outside around us, people are born into different families, which impact how they are growing up into a person. So what drives, if I'm born into one family and another person is born into a family which makes him an evil person, and the other person is driven by association of good people around and brought up into a spiritual and religious manner. So what drives where I'm born, and is there anything that is beyond karma?
Well, there's multiple ways of addressing your question. One of them is guna and karma, not just karma. Guna means the qualities with which one has involved in the previous life. And karma, the choices I've made, and I'm responsible for the choices that I've made. So those impressions are held in the subtle body, and the subtle body carries the soul to the next situation, according to guna and karma. Another way of essentially saying the same thing, it's just another way of saying it. The mind carries the soul to the next situation. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, whatever the mind is fixed on at the time of death, that state you will attain. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam chachat ante kalevaram, without any question. Whatever the mind is absorbed in, that's where the soul is going to go. After this body is finished, the soul is going there, according to what the mind is absorbed in. So what the mind is absorbed in has everything to do with guna and karma. What's really important to you, and the so many multiple, who can say n number of impressions of choices that we've made, that we're carrying those impressions in the mind. And the soul is taken. There's the principle, and there's, unlimitedly variegated others. What's, those primary impressions. So the attachment, like, for example, Bharat Maharaj, you're familiar with that story. At the time of death, he thought of a deer, so he took the body of a deer. But that wasn't the only thing. His whole life as a king was very elevated in devotion. So even in the body of a deer, he had remembrance of his previous life as a king. Super soul arranged that remembrance, and he lived that life as a deer, and then in his next life he became the son of a Brahmin. Because of that good merit that he had accumulated during his life as king, Bharat Maharaj. And he was the son of an incarnation, Rishabdev. So, very special. So Jad Bharat was, so that's an example that illustrates a principle. So what determines is guna and karma, that's embedded within or carried in a subtle way, better than, a computer hard drive. Storing information is stored in the mind in very subtle form, and that information prompts, guna and karma, and we desire accordingly, and that's where we go.
If a soul is born as a bird or a deer, how will they remember Krishna or in the end of their...
They won't. Well, it's exceptional if they will. Extremely exceptional if they will. Rather, someone is born as a deer or a bird, then comes that's due to past karma, and they have to burn off that karma, so their consciousness becomes more evolved or less covered, and then they'll take their next life form, next life form, next life form, next life form, up to the human life form, because in the human life form, consciousness is more evolved or less covered. Now comes more free will choices. One of those choices is to remember what we've forgotten. Like, who are we? And what's the mission of life? Lower life forms don't have that freedom. Their consciousness is less evolved. So with that freedom comes responsibility. That means we can accrue new karma. Lower life forms don't accrue new karma. They're burning off whatever has accumulated from previous existence through the evolutionary scale up to the human form. Then choices, more choices, freedom. Not unlimited, but some degree more freedom. So then it's very important when you get a human form to understand what the mission is. What's the intention of the Creator for this human form? That's self-realization, or attaining higher consciousness, or attaining God realization. That's the mission. And there's so many other things that we do, that's fine. We go to school, etc., without listing all the things that we do. And so those are duties, and then there's theistic conduct to do those duties so that it's aligned with that goal. But the essence is achieving that goal. If supposing someone doesn't get it, they have another idea of what the mission of human life is. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow I may die. So that's, then that human form of life has been wasted and they're going down. because that's what their mind is absorbed in, and their guna and karma. Okay? Either of you have something you want to hear us discuss? Okay. Maybe as time passes, something will come up.
Maharaj, I had a question. On the commentary for the 35th verse by Sanatan Goswami, in the context with Krishna speaking a lie, but he's saying that, I didn't lie, but others are lying. So he says that speaking a lie in fear is not a fault.
For Krishna.
For Krishna. So sometimes even adults do that.
Oh, yeah. And that's a fault.
So the question is like, due to fear, sometimes there is, speaking of a lie. So what should be the consciousness? How should we get over that?
Well, it depends on your position. That is to say, Prabhupada would often speak of the quality of a Brahmana as one of the primary outstanding qualities of a Brahmana is truthful. And he would say, one would tell the truth even before an aggressor. Like, where is your money in your house? It's over there. So, that's not what we normally do. If someone wants to steal your money, you don't lead them to where the money is. Depends. But, that's the quality of a Brahman, is they're just cent percent, inside and outside and in between, truthful. But then Prabhupada says, for a Vaishya, they may say, sir, for you I make no profit. And they couldn't exist as a Vaishya if they didn't make profit. But they say, for you I make no profit. You're my friend. They're making some profit. But that's Vaishya talk. And so, everything depends.
The fear, speaking of the lie, comes due to fear because we are not properly sheltered.
Yeah. We have some other idea of what's going to protect us, and it's our cleverness, not Krishna. I mean, one of the strongest virtues that Ram in his Leela represented was to abide by the truth. Whatever the expense, he would abide by the truth. So that's a virtue. And one should, he wasn't a Brahmana, he was a Kshatriya, but stick by the truth. Never speak a lie, always speak the truth. And there's other idea, there's a transcendental idea of truth also. The transcendental idea of truth has to do with knowing who you are. If you don't know who you are, you don't even know what truth is. You have a material idea of what truth is. It's the opposite of telling a lie. But supposing you don't know who you are, you don't know what is absolute, what is eternal, you can't speak the truth in that case, no matter what. There's a material idea of truth, but not a spiritual idea of truth. So if you come to the spiritual conception of who you are, then you're protected. Krishna is your protector. Like, Hiranyakashipu was saying, where is Vishnu? And Prahlad said, he's everywhere. And he said, is he in the pillar? And Prahlad said, he's everywhere. He's in the pillar. So one of the statements when Lord Nrsingadev came for the pillar was to uphold the words spoken by Prahlad. Yes, I'm everywhere, including in the pillar, and he came out of the pillar. Because the Lord will uphold the truth of the devotee who is truthful. So that's a spiritual conception. That people that don't have a spiritual conception, they wave their hand at and say, oh, silly. The Lord will protect you if you speak the truth. Speak the truth. That one who has faith in Krishna, they won't deviate from that. And fear can't overcome them. They'll feel protected.
This is not a question, Maharaj. This is a comment or an observation. Mother Yashoda seeing so many things when Krishna opened his mouth. So one of the things that I was astonished, I should say, was seeing the mind, like we were saying even yesterday.
We're going to discuss it tonight more.
Okay. So I was thinking that even if somebody shows me the mind, they have to tell that this is the mind. so along with the vision also came the knowledge.
Yes.
It's just my observation. Yeah.
Yes, you've understood correctly. It's a very special vision. We can't see those things. And no one else was able to see those things. She was able to see those things. She was given the eyes, the sensory power to see. And also given the intelligence to understand this is what you're seeing. Because otherwise you could see something, you'll see something else other than what it is if you don't have the intelligence to understand what it is. Okay.
There are online questions.
Yeah.
This is from Rajeshwari Mataji. If Brahma has realized his Swarupa during tapasya before he began the creation process, how he got bewildered in Brahma Vimohan Leela?
By Krishna's arrangement, that's how. Because otherwise he would not be, as you're saying, it would not be possible. He not only realized his Swarup, he realized everything. He realized the whole of Brahma Samhita, he realized everything. He became well acquainted with the ocean of truth. He manifested the 4 Vedas. He's the head of a sampradaya. He's not an ordinary Prabhu.
Another question she is asking, if everyone has prema in the spiritual world, then only sweetness has to be there, madhurya, actually unable to understand how the Aishwarya Bhav is part of prema.
Well, let's go to Vaikuntha for a moment. The residents of Vaikuntha, they're pure. The nature of their love in purity has a certain feature. It's the Aishwarya or opulent feature. It does not also have the Madhurya feature. It's a feature of prema. And as one goes to Ayodhya and Dwarka, etc., then the sweetness or Madhurya increases. What I'm saying here is, in Vaikuntha, they have prema, and their prema is pure. It's not less than pure. It's not kind of halfway pure or 3/4 of the way pure. It's fully pure. And that prema has a certain feature to it, the Aishwarya feature. There's additional features not found in Vaikuntha that are found in Ayodhya and Dwarka, etc. That's the Madhurya feature. It's a particular kind of prema.
This question is from Shrikant Prabhu from Naperville. Are Vrajavasis under the influence of Maya in Brindavan?
Yogamaya.
if Brajavasis are not under the influence of Maya, why did they accuse Krishna as Makkanchor, as everything within manifested and unmanifested world belongs to Krishna, and Krishna can have it for his own pleasure, however he wants it?
Because they didn't see like that. They didn't see Krishna as God. That is, he who has everything within him and is the proprietor of everything. They didn't see him that way. They saw him in a different way. Their beloved friend, their beloved son, their beloved lover. They saw him in a different way because of the strength of the sweetness feature. They didn't see that way. We've been discussing this. Okay. Last chance, girls. Anything at all, anything under the sun. Off topic is fine. Okay. Okay. You have something.
Yesterday in the evening class, the children, when they were asking about, religion in India, why it's in India,
Why is what in India?
why the religion had started in India, and then you were
Why Vedic culture is
Yeah.
rooted in India.
right. So you were explaining that time. I had a question like, why then all the incarnation appeared in India?
Because it's a place of purity.
Oh, India.
You know, we don't go to other places because it's not a place of purity. So the Lord appears where there's purity. And the purity comes from higher consciousness. So he goes to those places. I mean, something that Prabhupada was speaking of often in the world, in the history of the world. If you want to find real spirituality, it's found in India. I mean, historically, people know that. So why is that? Because the Lord appears there and gives teachings there. And why does he appear there and give teachings there? Because of higher consciousness, spiritual consciousness. It's reciprocation with persons of higher consciousness. Now, historically, we also discussed this yesterday evening, the influence of that spiritual culture was far more extensive, but it has shrunk and shrunk and shrunk over a period of the advancement of Kali Yuga. And even today it's shrinking further for a variety of reasons, Kali Yuga reasons. But the spiritual culture was pervasive. But the root is Bharatvarsha, Punya Bhumi. Okay.